So, good evening.
Hey.
How's everybody feeling?
I already told him.
Well, Paula did.
Do you want to start with questions about the exercises, go through them one by
Well, if
one?
you just go through them and then I'll just ask you why it wasn't such and such.
Sure. How far did we get in class?
You said 7 through 15. So.
All right, then let's start off with 7.
Well, I'll do 7, I have Hutos, Estin, Ho, Logos, to Curio, Namdasing of this, Estin is it or he is, the word, the to and Curio are genitive, so it means of, so this is the word of the Lord.
Perfect.
Wait, isn't ha logos the subject?
See, and he hasn't gone over this.
I would think this is the subject.
Right. So, if we were to translate this otherwise, it would be the word is this of the Lord, right? But there's a scheme of ranking how to determine what the subject is, and the first thing is think pronoun, proper noun, and this is where my memory is failing me. It's one of these two. I don't remember which one is first. And then it's definite article. And it keeps on going down the
I
list.
bet you got it right up there. The pronoun, although not spelled that way, of course, but I bet that's first.
Thank you.
Because that would explain the sentence that this is the subject.
Right, so this is the word of the Lord. So I think that it's pronoun, proper noun, because pronoun is taking the place of your noun, so it's going to take precedence.
Now, if the risk of exposure, what does that matter?
Why does it matter?
This word is of the Lord. Because if the logos is the subject, it is.
Oh, okay.
And also remember that this is the only way to construct your predicate with the demonstrative pronouns, because you can't have an article with your hutas. It has to have estin, so it's got to be this is the word. And you could even write it if you wanted to. Estin hutas halagos to Curio, and it would still be this is the word of the Lord. I think.
Is this the word?
If it would be is this the word, it would have to be that.
Okay.
I think. So yeah, and this is also important because it helps us to determine when we have two nominatives in a sentence, and it's a predicate sentence. It helps us to know which one is the subject and which one is the predicate, which one is having something stated about it. All right. Next one. Number 8.
I'll take it. Gnoskamen, Tutan, Kai, Agamen, Natan, Metatu, Himathiu, Altu, Extus, Oikus, Amo.
Hey.
Amo. We know this one, and we leave him with his cloak. our houses.
Good.
Now, why isn't it, we know this? We
It
know
could be.
this, and we leave him with his cloak to our houses.
The difficulty with just saying this, or this thing is
Or this
the,
man. I mean,
this man would work.
He's got man in the answer. It was like, how did he pick man?
Remember when we have a noun alone being used as a substantive or an adjective being used as a substantive or anything along those lines, we can infer, we can just say this one or this man. It becomes a little more obscure because the default is the masculine. If we had seen to tame, then we would know this what?
Woman or
Woman,
whatever.
right. Unless there was something in the previous context that agrees with your pronoun in gender. So if I, for instance, had like, if this was your preceding sentence, right? Hey, colleagues. No, wrong way. Colleagues. The land is beautiful. And then I had to tame in the next sentence. To tame would probably most likely be referring to the land because it's in the feminine. So pronouns are always taking the place of nouns, and it always depends upon what comes before. It seems as if what comes after in the next sentence is a man is in view, or some man is in view. All right. Any other questions about 8? Let's try out 9.
Pheromone, tata, ta, dora, apu, tu, apostolo, este, ekolasion, hemon. We bring these gifts because of the tau. Apostolo is in the genitive, the hapo is from.
Good.
So as we bring these gifts from the apostle, the este is into the church. Now, I've got Haman as genitive, so it's of us.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I had a real hard time in Rough Creek getting this all put together.
Okay, so we've got 2 different options on how we can translate it in the English. Ace, tame, ecclesion, church. We can translate it into the church of us, which is very rough for the English idiom, but we can transform that into what? Into
Our church.
our church. Yeah. So that's one of the Greek ways of the possessive pronoun, our, would be to put it in the genitive.
Now, why is estane into? I'm not quite sure why it's not. Why is it into? Why would we translate it into? I thought it was like to be or.
Well, it's because you're reading these 2 together and you're pronouncing it.
Yeah,
this.
you're.
All right, so it's the way I wrote it in my book.
Yeah. So this is Estin.
Okay,
just to be,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's why
Now I
sometimes
understand.
pronunciation, yeah.
Now I understand what my mistake was. Okay.
All right, 10.
Houtos estin anthropos tu kosmu kai echthros tu them ekenos de estin philos tu them.
Good.
This man is of the world and an enemy of God, but that friend is of God.
Okay.
This is going to be the same sort of problem you had with 7. It's not this man, it is this.
It was this man is a man of the world.
I have this man as a man of the world and an enemy of God, but that man is a friend of God. I had man in parentheses, so I added it
And how did you translate the second clause?
for but that man is a friend of God.
So why didn't we translate the first clause the same way that we translated the second? I think the answer to that is because we're seeing something. In the second clause, we have ekenos de estin. And the word, next one is
Can I say estampados?
philos. So we translated that as what? That man is a friend, right?
Right.
But we translated the first one, which was first clause there,
It's hutos.
hutos estin
Estin.
anthropos.
Yeah.
Hutos estin. How do we translate this one?
This man is.
This man is. So
This he is man.
yeah,
of
you know
the
what? You're
world.
right. I'm being stupid here. You said this man is a man of the world, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Ignore my stupidity.
I guess
I was translating that as just a simple pronoun as opposed to substantive. So I was thinking in my head, this is a man of the world.
That's where I'm struggling. Is I'm so literal. I have a hard time injecting.
I think that's what the answer was.
Is it?
Yeah.
The answer is this is a man of the world and an
An
enemy of God,
God.
but that man is a friend of God, is what he's got in the back of the book.
Why isn't friend in the accusative?
Because that was the point I was trying to get at. Friend doesn't need to be in the accusative. Ekenos de estin philos. That's why those rules are important. Because it's a it's a predicate nominative situation. So we have two nominatives, nominative plus to be verb, and then nominative. This becomes more complicated in this instance because when we saw it as a predicate adjective, it was easy for us. This man is red, this man is blue, etc. We didn't have that much of a problem with it, but now that we have two nominative nouns, it gets to be a little more complex. So you're not going to have it in the accusative, it has to be in the nominative. Now, I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that both translations of that are acceptable. This man is a man of the world and an enemy of God, or this is a man of the world and an enemy of God. Because hutos can either be this or this one or this man. Does that make sense? Yeah. $11.
Ekonoi, hoi, apostoloi. AC, Mathatai, Tutu, Tu, Kyrios.
Yep.
Okay. Those apostles are disciples of the Lord.
The tutu, you forgot the tutu.
No, I had the 222.
Then you have to have a this. Those disciples, those apostles are disciples
Yeah.
of this Lord, not the
Okay,
Lord.
thanks. So I have this written down, but I couldn't construct this one.
Good, so do that one more time.
So those apostles are disciples of this Lord.
This one, yes, correct. Perfect.
I don't know, I just like saying 222. Curious.
12.
Metatas, Hemeros, Ekenas, Omen, Tutus, Tus, Mathitas, Ace, Ta, Loyon. Okay, meta is after. The tas, Hemeros is plural, feminine, accusative. So meta is after. After the days, Ekenas is feminine. Those, and then the oxomen is the future of we will lead. Tutus is these. The tus mathetas are disciples. Ace is into. And Ployon is boat.
Perfect.
So after those days, we will lead these disciples into the boat.
Yep.
Now, there's a lot of feminine in here. And so I have written these women disciples into the boat. But is it just these words are written feminine, so it does not necessarily mean that they're feminine?
Is mathetes feminine?
I was looking at the ekenas, those.
Okay, well, akanos has to, you translated that together as those what? Those in after those
Days.
days, right? So hemeros is our noun, our controlling noun.
Right,
And it's what gender?
it's feminine.
Right, so
Okay, so
if
that's
it's
the
fe-
reason.
Right, if
Okay.
it's feminine, then
Okay.
akanos has, akanos has to be. And mathetas looks like it's feminine, but it's really masculine.
Okay.
13.
Oh, it's in, yeah, the masculine is in, and it was in the plural accusative.
Yeah.
Good.
Poi apostoloi tu kuriou ephagon arton kai karpon ente eremo. The apostles of the Lord ate bread and fish in the wilderness.
Fish.
Oh, fruit.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of
I don't
carpon.
know fish it.
We don't, but it is iskouros.
Discuss.
We don't have it yet because it's the third declension noun.
Okay.
So,
So my question was, why was it ente eremo? Because it was in the dative, you automatically put a 2, so it was into. I was thinking it had to be into the wilderness, even though it didn't make sense in English.
so you were thinking that instead of in, it needed to be ace?
No, it was just because it said N and then it was in the dative. I thought you always sort of put in a little extra 2 if it was a dative. Sort of like when it's in the genitive, you think of.
I think for the, you don't. Remember that whenever we have a preposition in ace, apa, kata, whatever goes with it, for this it's the
Mhm.
genitive, then we're not going to translate the genitive as well. We're not going to say
Okay.
from, of, whatever.
Okay.
We drop the base meaning of that case in favor of the preposition.
Mm-hmm.
14?
Altos, Aden, Akenata, Semea, and Urano. He himself saw those signs in heaven.
Good.
How do you get the himself?
Yeah.
Is that the translation he gives in the back of the book?
Yes, he dash, comma, himself saw those signs in heaven.
Okay, so you can do it either way. I think that his preference is for you to notice that the utas is there when it doesn't have to be. So you could have the same meaning by just having Eden, Ikena, Tasemea, and Urana, rather.
So why is that the emphatic?
I don't know if it's necessarily emphatic. I think you can translate it both ways. You can translate it as he saw those signs in heaven, or
Those
he himself.
signs. Okay. I had, he saw that the signs were in heaven. That's,
No, you would have to have a conjunction for that. Ati. He saw those signs.
okay.
But I think you can translate it either way is really the point.
Those signs.
The presence of it here forces us to ask the question, why is it there when it doesn't need to be? So it's probably laying stress on the subject.
Because that could have just been Iden, Ikena.
Right.
Okay.
So the subject is contained, and it's not getting any more descriptive.
So that makes it emphatic.
Yeah. 15?
Meta, Tauton, Town, Pistoin, Ekosan, Poi, Mathatai, Parabalas, Agathas, Ho de las, Akuse, Lagus, Thanaton, Thanatu. And with the believers heard the disciples good parables, but the people heard words of death. But it was after. I'm sorry, with these believers. This one was at the end of the rope here. At the end of
Anyone else have any suggestions?
Would you?
With these faithful men, the disciples heard good parables.
And either of those work?
Believers, the disciples heard good parables.
Not believers.
Not believers, huh?
It's faithful.
Faithful ones.
Faithful.
Yeah. If you were to do believers.
So I'm thinking of pistue for belief. That's
Yeah.
just throwing me.
Wondering if pistos has the. Stick with faithful ones for now.
Okay.
He's got faithful men in the answer book.
Yeah, and that would work as well. Remember, in the masculine plural, it can encompass men and women. He's got to pick one translation to go with, so faithful men.
So it's with the faithful ones, the disciples heard good parables, but the people heard words of death.
Yes. No. There's one little thing. You said, but the people hear words of death?
Heard.
Heard? Still not right. Try one more.
How about will hear?
Yes. We've landed on a winner.
Yeah.
If it were heard, it would have to be what?
Akusan. Akuse.
Not quite. A ku sas. So the alpha from akuo gets lengthened for the augment. Then we add our sigma and our alpha, and our secondary active endings were on, s, in, amen, eta, on, or son. So, sos. That's how you get that for the aorist. Good.
Now, what would need to change to make it that the faithful heard with the disciples good parables? Because my first inclination was that with these, the faithful heard the disciples good parables.
You
And
could.
I was having a terrible time. I had these extra words. I was like, which way does it go? Where does the emphasis go?
Right. The second one you just said wouldn't be accurate because then you'd made the disciples the object of the hearing. But the first one is just fine. With these faithful ones, the disciples heard good parables, or the disciples heard with these faithful ones good parables. You can
Okay,
put
so
that.
that would have been okay.
Grammatically, those are correct, but it seems as if in this Greek sentence, the prepositional phrase is fronted for emphasis.
Okay.
Metatuto, ton pisto. And that was 15, right?
Yep.
Take a break. All right, here is the less exciting part. When we've talked about verbs, we've been able to say two things with certainty, right?
Yep, active, indicative.
Active and indicative. We were pretty much able to do person and number. Person. You guys know how bad my spelling is. Always embarrasses me. And then we learned our present, future, imperfect, aorist, perfect, pluperfect. We're going to knock away one of these, and that's active. Now we will have verbs that occur in the middle and passive voice. And we get to do this again with the middle and passive forms. So you were asking what comes next. This is what comes next, learning the middle and passive forms for your tenses.
So, all those on the left are tenses.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle, those are voices?
Voices, right?
How many voices are there?
3.
Okay. And then indicative is the mood?
Yes.
How many moods are there?
There are 4 moods, but bear with me. Optative, if you go to the chapter on the optative, I don't even think he gives you forms for it. There are maybe 20 occurrences of the optative, and a lot of them are like me genoita, may it never be. Those occur most of the time, so far as the optative is concerned. So we basically don't, from the New Testament.
The permissive.
Right. Not the permissive, but it's the contingent, like the mood of potentiality, even though subjunctive is that as well. This is even more tenuous than the subjunctive. So we have the indicative, we have the subjunctive, and we have the imperative. This is getting ahead of ourselves, and it's looking bleak. But optative, you're not going to deal with very much. The imperative, you only have to learn second and third person forms for, because there's no first person imperative. And there are less tenses for the imperative. The subjunctive, you are only going to learn the present and the aorist tense. So your tenses get cut from 6 to 2 for the subjunctive. I think you're only learning the present and the aorist. And that's the mood of potentiality. If this happens, if that would occur. In order that it might happen, that would be in the subjunctive. But put that out of your mind. Put all of this out of your mind, except for that. You've learned that.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll erase this.
Is this the last voice, did you say?
What now?
How did-
These are the last two voices.
Who was the last?
These are the last two voices.
Okay.
And we even have some good news in there. All right, we're going to cover the middle and the passive. Before we actually look at the Greek of the middle and the passive, we should define what the middle and the passive are. The passive is easier for us to understand. At least I would think so. The boy hit the ball is in what voice?
Active.
Active voice. Why is it in the active voice?
Boy's doing the action.
The boy is doing the action. So boy is the one that is hitting something. How would we construct that if we wanted to put it in passive?
The ball is hit by.
Good. The ball was hit by the boy.
Doesn't that make ball the subject?
Yes, the ball is now the subject, and
But the action.
the action is being done to the ball
In both cases.
in both cases.
So when it's the object of the action, it is.
What now?
When it's the object of the action, it's called.
When the subject is the object of the action, it is the passive voice. If you wanted another construction, if this makes it easier for you to see, the boy, still staying as a subject, was hit by a ball. Now, the boy is the subject, and the hitting is,
So the key is the was before the verb.
right, in English at least.
And it's a past tense.
That is not a past tense, it is a passive voice.
No, I'm saying that the verb here is a past tense.
Yes,
Was
it is.
hit.
Was hit. So we're learning the present, so is being.
Or will be hit. No.
Is being hit.
Okay.
That would be your present. Was would be your past.
And will be.
And will be is your future.
Okay. Good.
So that's the concept of the passive. The subject and the active is doing the action. The subject and the passive is being acted upon. The middle is a little more difficult for us to understand. The boy washes would be an example in the middle. But we don't think about it as that. We think of it as it being active. And it is. So the boy is doing the action, right? He's washing. But the implicit subject is what?
Himself.
Himself, right?
Won't we usually do that in the past tense? That boy washed.
Or we could do it in the
Well, we
present
could,
as well.
but I'm saying
I wash myself.
in English.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, if the boy is actively washing himself, he says, I wash myself.
Yeah.
Or I am washing myself. So we have it in the English, but we don't think about it. What the middle does is it has a number of different uses. It can be reflexive. That would be this instance. Reflexive. Where the subject does the action, but he is also the object of the acting. The intensive
What are these subsets referred to as?
different uses of the middle.
Uses.
The boy himself washes. And that's probably not really a good example because it's still sort of reflexive as well. It's a combination of the reflexive and the intensive. So maybe we change the verb and we say the boy himself hits the ball,
Goes or something.
not the boy. It would be a mean boy. The reciprocal would be one another. So the boys agree with one another. Flexive, intensive, reciprocal. Spell it right. That all clear? Somewhat? We'll get to the translations and make it more clear. So that is our middle. Those are the three main uses of the middle: reflexive, intensive, reciprocal. For each of those, you just need to remember intensive intensifies the subject, the boy himself is the one that's hitting. The reflexive is the subject and the object are the same of the action. And then with the reciprocal, it is in the interest of the subject. That is part one of this lesson. Part two, we remember that we had primary and secondary actives, active forms for the active voice, right? It was O, ace, a, amen, eta, usen. On, s, in, amen, eta, on. That looks like an ood though. We also have primary and secondary middle and passive endings. All we're learning today is our primary.
Can you review the secondary active example or two? Change that.
That's okay. So our primary active endings occurred with which tenses? Present and future. So luo, I, loose, in, or destroy. Our secondary active occurred with our imperfect, our aorist, our perfect, and our pluperfect. So compare luo and luso. Those are both with the active ending with your imperfect, which was lu, on. Your imperfect had the augment and then the the secondary active ending. I know, it's not as difficult as we think that it is, because this is overwhelming. If we keep our categories straight, then it's really not that hard. But the trick, obviously, is to keep the categories straight. If all of that information I just gave you is overwhelming, then do a dump. Don't worry about it. A memory dump.
It just helped. It's helping right now. I'm glad you did that because I'm telling you, you've heard jump along. Conjugating nouns.
So our primary middle ending, middle and passive endings are my, psi, tie, metha, This the. New accent. Oh man, pronouncing it right and writing it wrong. On tie. My side tie method is the on tie.
On tie or on tie?
On tie. Omicron, Nu, Tau, Alpha, Iota.
I bet there's augmentation in there too.
Not yet. We're only dealing with our present right now. All of the rules that we learned for these tenses are the same. So if you could form the present, if you could form the future, if you could form the imperfect, aorist, pluperfect, and perfect, all of those rules are the same. It's just changing the endings that we learned to make it a different voice. Base is laid. We just need to manipulate our endings now. My, psi, tie, metha, lista, on tie. Now I'm going to go ahead and break one rule of this. It's kind of mean because here is our present of luo and the present, middle, or passive of luo are all conjugated. Lu, amai, and here it is. Lue. Luetai. Luamatha. Luista. Luontai. Saw how that happened. All of those were easy. Luamai, Luetai, Luamatha, Luesta, Luontai. We take our base from luo, cut off the ending, here is our root, and we just add our endings to it. Lue used to be Luisi, but the sigma dropped out, the epsilon and the alpha contracted, a rule that we'll learn much later, to become an eta, and then the iota gets subsumed. So it became, from Luisi, it became Luci, well no, from Luisi, it became Luei. These contracted to Lu-A, becoming Lu-A. You don't have to know all of that. Forget it. Just know that even though your primary middle passive ending is psi, it is A most of the time. One of the few exceptions to the rules.
What about the,
Passive endings?
no, those bridge vowels?
Mm-hmm. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. There. There. And there.
Wait, so the real ending is ntai or,
Third person.
Yeah.
okay.
I'm sorry. The real endings are those I learned with the connecting vowels. It's a difference in presentation. The same rules for your connecting vowels that we learned to begin with are applied here. In front of a mu and a nu, it's an omicron. In front of the rest of them, for the most part, it's an epsilon. So those are your phonological cushions, or your connecting vowels. Now, the important thing to know about the present, middle, and passive is that it is both present, it is present and both middle and passive. The forms for the middle and the passive of the present are the same. What does that mean for you? It means, one, much rejoicing. You don't have to learn two different sets for the middle and the passive. It's the same. Number two means much consternation. I can't distinguish between the middle or the passive without context. The context is pretty clear when it's going to be passive, though. You have words of agency that will help you out with that, like by, or through, or because of. Or the context will just lend itself towards a passive.
In the New Testament, what percentage of the verbs are middle or passive?
Not as many. Percentage-wise, I don't think I can answer that, because I don't know.
Well, I don't know the exact number, but not as many.
I mean, they're mostly in the. It's a more complex question than you think, because we're about to get to a concept called deponency, and some words don't have active forms. So it's not that they are necessarily middle, but they just occur in the middle voice. Susan's like, yeah, that's fine. I learned deponency in Latin, right?
No,
You didn't learn
I
to?
dropped out in Latin too.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. All right,
Let's go to
breathe. You've learned your forms. Let's repeat them. My, psi, tie, metha, ista, anti. My, psi, tie, metha, ista, anti. My, psi, tie, metha, ista, anti. Okay. Two quick concepts before moving on. I'm going to skip over deponency for a second, and we'll get there. First one is agency on page 89. In the example, the boy was hit by the ball, right? The ball is the agent of some sort that is doing the hitting of the boy. You have three different ways to express agency in Greek. Hupa plus the genitive is direct agency. So the example he offers there is the sinners are being saved by God. God is the direct agent of the sinners being saved. Intermediate agency is dia plus the genitive. So the sinners are being saved by the apostles. They are the intermediate agents, theologically, of God, who is the direct agent of the salvation. And then you have indirect agency. So no specific agency is being
Or
denoted.
impersonal, even.
Impersonal, yes, I'm sorry. I was going to say, how am I going to reason through this? This doesn't make any sense. It's because I was wrong. Impersonal agency. So the sinners are being saved by the Word of God. And you would do that by just simply using the dative or by using the preposition in plus the dative. So it can be into lago, theou, or just to lago, theou. These different categories are important from an exegetical standpoint. So being able to determine if it's direct, intermediate, or impersonal, when you see something like the sinners are being saved by the apostles, that would be something to help disambiguate. But if you just come up with by, then that's fine. Be a little less stressful on you on this point, at this point. The translation is the same, is what I'm getting at.
He got his verse wrong. It's not Matthew 5:5, it's Matthew 5:4. Sorry. So,
That's good to know.
it is.
I will let him know.
5 is blessed are the meek, for they will inherit. 5:4 is the mourners who will be comforted.
Very good.
Yeah.
You can let them know.
I can.
Okay.
And then he'll tell me, email Broadman and let them know about the correction.
So going over to 5:4, they will be comforted. Paraklethesantai.
From parakaleo.
Ah, the comforter. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the verb, to be comfort. The comforter is
Please.
parakletos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we've got those concepts down, and the last concept is one of the most annoying concepts to teach in Greek.
Could you give me another sentence that shows, I'm not quite sure I have the idea of, okay, the first one is direct.
Direct agency, so.
So it would be, the disciples talked, the second one was the disciples said the word of God. I mean,
The second one, so this would be, other than by God, by the disciples.
okay. So anyway, that attaches it directly to the action. You've got to have the word by in there.
Right.
For it to be direct. Okay.
Would that make sense?
Okay.
No. That would be better, actually.
Okay.
The other one would actually fall under the same category because the writing was, yeah. So it's the word, it's God's word, but it's being spoken by God here, or it's being spoken by men here. It's sort of what the idea of the author of Hebrews is getting at when he says that the message was once proclaimed to you through prophets, etc., but now it has been proclaimed to you by the Son of God himself. So before he was using intermediaries, now he's incarnated himself and delivered his word personally. That's agency, that's middle and passive, deponent verbs. And there are a number of different ways that I can teach this. And I don't like any of the ways. To give you a little bit of a preface, deponency is a Latin category that means to lay aside. The theory of deponency in Greek is that there have been verbs that have laid aside their middle or passive meaning. They have a middle or a passive form. They've laid that aside and taken up an active meaning.
So they're written middle, but they're active.
Yeah, the better way to put that is exactly that. They're written as middles, but they are truly actives, so far as voice is concerned. That is not a theory that is particularly received today. As a matter of fact, it's been posited and debated for centuries now, so it's not just like scholarship has come up and changed its mind all of a sudden.
So it's how they arrived at their form. I'm going to agree.
That's one theory, that they used to have active forms, but now they only have passive forms, or middle or passive forms.
Is everything so mathematical, though, and formulaic? Don't things just sometimes
fall out.
evolve into their...
Sometimes they do. It doesn't seem to be the case here, though, because it seems to be that these have always been the forms. But then again, I'm not very well versed in the argument. Really?
Why are we doing this now?
What now?
Why are we throwing in these verbs?
Because you're going to see them, because
You're
they're
gonna-
middle,
we're gonna
but they're
learn.
active.
Okay.
And I really don't want to confuse. That's not my aim here. I don't want to get into a big scholarly discussion on deponency. I don't mind using the category because the translation is the same. No matter which theory you ascribe to, you're going to translate the verb the same way, and you're going to translate it with the equivalent of active voice in English. So there are verbs. Here is one of them. Erkomai. What's odd about this verb?
Eklamon.
Lego, right? So far, to this point, we have learned all of our lexical forms with an omega ending. We've all learned them as the present active indicative first person singular. Verbs like erkomai, dekamai,
Oh, that's a key.
paruamai, and many others that he lists do not have active forms. You're not going to see them like this in your lexicon. You will only see them with my endings.
Okay.
So they will never occur in the active. But you're not going to translate erkomai, which means I walk, as I was walked. Or dekamai, I receive, as I was received. There are ways to write that as well, but this form we will translate actively. So I receive, or I come, or I walk. There is a sense, and this is part of the argument, that these are all are middle forms truly, because I, as the subject, have the walking, the coming, the receiving in my own interest. So it still has the force of a true middle. But for the purposes of this class, for the purposes of where we are, just translate it as active.
Is there a signal besides memorization?
Of those forms, you will memorize them in your vocabulary as this, so that should signal to you.
Is this it?
Yeah.
These are all the.
No, there are more of them.
Okay.
So your deponent verbs are listed there, and those are your only new verbs for the chapter, except for arco and huparco. Any other questions about that? That very confusing concept in Greek. Take note in your vocabulary that arco means I rule, but in the middle and passive form archimai, it means I begin.
What was beginning again? Arche?
Arche, but that is a noun. In arche, halagos, etc. In the beginning, ein halagos, sorry, was the word. All right, we'll go over the vocabulary, and we've got a little bit of time for a couple of exercises. Because I think that we're confused at the moment, and when we start to see it and discuss it, we'll see it a little bit better. Arco,
Arco.
I rule. Huparco,
Arco.
I am or I exist. Apokrinamai, I answer. Arkamai, I begin. Aspagzamai,
Haspazamai.
I greet. Bulamai, I wish. Ginamai, I become, I am. Dekamai, I receive. Ekparuamai, I come out or I go out. Ergagzamai, I work. Erkamai, I come, I go. Euangeligzamai, that is, I preach the gospel or I bring good news. Logigzamai, I consider. Paruamai, I come or I go. Prasukamai, I pray. And pseudamai, I lie. We saw that one last week in 1 John. What now?
I got one I memorized. The pseudomai, yes.
Well, you can remember eulongigsamai, the euangelion, or the gospel. There's a theological term, the proto-evangelion, first gospel. Other than that, ergogsamai is like energetic. Notice two other things about your vocabulary. For apokrinamai, the direct object will be in the dative case. We've seen this before with akuo, which takes the genitive for its object, direct object. And arco takes the genitive for its direct object. And that is it.
So you're saying that anything that's associated with these, like with the arco, it will always be in the genitive?
So arco, for instance,
I'm not sure. It says takes the genitive, and I'm not sure what you mean by it.
how would you translate that, which would be wrong? This is what we would expect.
I rule. I rule them.
I rule them is what we would think. This is the accusative.
Okay.
Okay, I said rule.
But it
over
can't
them.
be that. It's going to be I rule auton. I rule them. Or apokrinamai is not going to be apokrinamai autus. Not going to be that. It will be apokrinamai autois.
I would just say I rule over them.
I rule over them
Would that be genitive?
would be arco. In the accusative? Is it over? Yeah. Over. I rule over them.
Would they
But-
say that though, or would they just say I ruled them?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Being American, speaking English and not Greek, I do not know the idiom. You'd have to take a look at all of those different instances and see if one of them would
Yeah,
have
but
to
you
go.
couldn't look, yeah, you couldn't look it up in the English because it wouldn't make necessary.
Right. All right, number one, let us do a couple of translations. I'll pronounce for you so we can go a little bit faster and you can bear the brunt. Luantai, koi, duloi, kupa, ton, apostellon. Any brave souls?
Well, something to plural slaves. Slaves is plural and
We
nominative.
lose the slaves.
No. It's-
Luatai?
It's untai, so the slaves
Oh, it is third person plural.
are being loosed from the apostles.
Close. Well, God, this is working good. We should do it more like this more often as a group. So we've got the slaves. We're being loosed. That's all right. Anybody else want to chime in for the rest of it?
What's Hupa? What's Hupa?
Wasn't that by
Yes.
the apostles? Or
Good. Remember, these are your three different ways of expressing agency. Hupa plus the genitive, dia plus the genitive, and in plus the dative or just the dative. So the
Direct.
slaves or the servants were being loosened, or destroyed by the apostles. I'd hope they were loosing them, not destroying them. Number two, didaskatai he aletheia diaton huion ton matheton.
So you were taught.
Since we haven't learned them.
By the good teaching. Oh, by the sons of the apostles. Is the end of that.
Yes? Not the apostles, though.
Oh, the disciples.
Good. So the second half of that sentence is by the sons of the disciples.
Disciples.
What is the first part?
You were taught the good teaching.
Why is it not you?
No, sorry. They. Or he. She, it.
Yes, he, she, or it. Someone else? What's our subject? He, she, or it is the implied subject. Do we have a nominative?
Truth. Or
Good.
It's,
Yeah, I said good. Yeah, it's true. I let you.
I thought it was aletheia. I was like, how's truth plural?
Huh?
I misread it.
Okay.
Okay. So putting it all together.
That's your job.
No, it is not.
The truth was being taught by the sons of the disciples.
Yep, I think, unless truth is an adjective, which is what I was
that
sitting
the
here
truth
thinking.
is being taught by the sons of the disciples is the answer.
Yep, That's what I translated it as, and I found it somewhat awkward and stilted translation. But-
Wow, it sounds better than good truth. That sounds redundant.
So number 3, sozitai, hapistos, mathetes, hupa to curry.
Pays for
Do you have any brave soul that wants to step up and doing it all alone?
it.
No.
Sure.
Okay.
Sozitai is,
Say,
yeah, to save, so it is being saved. Ha pistos is the faithful. So the faithful are being saved.
It's not pistoi, it's pistos.
Pistos. Faithful one.
Yes.
Okay. Mathetes is disciples in the,
Mathetes, not matheton.
the faithful disciples being saved by the Lord.
The faithful one of the disciple. You said disciples.
okay, yeah. Okay, so it's genitive, of the disciple, by the Lord.
Good. So the faithful one of a disciple is being saved by the Lord.
Okay.
Last one.
So I was mistaken that for an adjective.
Which one?
Pistos mathetes.
No, see, it is an
Oh.
adjective. Oh, you have me wrong. And you are right.
Really?
Yes, I thought
Happened.
mathetes. What's wrong with my translation?
It's supposed to be the faithful disciple.
Yes.
Oh.
Mathetes is not a genitive. It would have to be mathetes, two? Or is it matheta?
It's
Matthew
the
two,
faithful
yeah.
disciple is being saved by the Lord.
Mathe2. So this is your lexical form, mathetes. So it's a adjectival construction. And
It's masculine though, right?
Yes.
It's a as sigma.
yep, I was off my game there.
So
So that
it's-
is the faithful disciple
Are being saved by the Lord.
is being saved by the Lord.
Okay.
Mhm. So last one, number 4. Pipitai ha angelos hupa tu apostolou ek tu oiku kai es tain ekklesion.
Susan?
The messenger is being sent by the apostle out of the house and into the church.
Perfect.
Yeah, good job.
So to look at that together, it's ha angelos is in the nominative singular masculine. So the angel. Pimpitai
Speak so.
is from pimpo. It has got the tie ending, which is the third singular, middle passive present. So the angel is being sent. Hupa is your agent by the apostle. Ek to oiku is your prepositional phrase, out of the house, and into the church. Perfect.
Good job.
After you learn this one and the next one, you finish the semester of Greek.
Homework?
Homework, yes, that thing.
You had to ask.
I know.
Oh, really?
Vocabulary. I mean, it's always the same every week. So vocabulary, learn your present middle passive endings. And do from 5 until 11.
Good.
Those who need more practice, you have from 12 until 20. section.